to working some more afternoons because maybe it's more convenient for people. But just want to let everyone know.
Bill.
Nothing, thanks.
Christian. Steve.
Yeah, again, kudos to Superintendent Keller. Really enjoyed our conversation. Recently, Madison School had a quasi-lockdown, and all the parents received a phone call and an email. So kudos to Chief Kaufman as well. I'm really happy to see this. I always heard about government moving at a snail's pace. Well, this time it didn't. And I think that's because of the leadership in this city. So thank you.
Okay. Laura.
We also had my community meeting on Saturday, and there'll be some things I'm going to bring forward, such as animal problems with too many hoarding of animals in our area. And so I'll be bringing that forward soon. And otherwise, it was pretty low-key, easy.
Bunnies?
Bunnies, no. Okay. Turtles.
Oh, that one. They do make a lot of noise, those turtles at night.
Apparently they smell.
Okay. Now it's approval order agenda. Everybody okay with this? Okay, we have agency recesses, so you bear with us. We're going to move over to a special meeting of the successor agency to the former redevelopment agency of the city of Redondo Beach. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. Can I have a roll call, please?
Member Ginsburg.
Here.
Member Brand.
Here.
Member Horvath.
Here.
Member San Marco.
Here.
Member MD.
Here.
Chairman Asfield.
Here. Okay, we have no blue folder items for this. Consent calendar. These are 4 items that'll be voted on at one time unless somebody pulls anything. Everybody good?
Yep.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve consent calendar items
Second.
C1 through C4.
Anybody from the public want to say anything? This is not the council. Good. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, adopt by title only resolution number SA-1601-001, a resolution of the successor agency to the former redevelopment agency of the city of Redondo Beach, approving and adopting a recognized obligation payment schedule pursuant to California Health and Safety Code Section 34177I. Thank you, Mayor.
Now is the time for public participation for non-agenda items on this agency, not the council. Anybody want to say anything? You're welcome to talk. Okay, good. We'll move right along. And that would be it. We just had to take care of some quick business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're moving on now to the special meeting of the Redondo Beach Community Financing Authority. And I need a roll call on this, please.
Member Ginsburg.
Here.
Member Brand.
Here.
Member Horvath.
Here.
Member San Marco.
Here.
Member MD.
Here.
Chairman Asfield.
Here. And there's no blue folder items for this either. So we have consent calendars on this also. And it's C1, 2, 3. And is there any a motion on the floor?
Yeah, motion to approve items C1 through C3.
Second.
Okay, anybody in the public want to say anything? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Now it's time for public participation on non-agenda items for the Financing Authority. Good. Okay. So item 11. Put my glasses on now. This is new
I1.
business.
Looks like 11.
Yeah, I-1.
What's that? We approve escrow instructions needed for the Redondo to acquire a loan from the ARC Lender LLC for the refinancing and construction of TRCF's Marine Avenue Hotel properties and authorized Community Financing Authority Chair, to me, that's me, to execute and any associated documents. So is there a staff report on this?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Finance Authority. Mike Witsanski, Assistant City Manager. Happy to be here tonight to present this item very briefly. This is a follow-up piece from our December 15th discussion where we approved an amendment to our side agreement with TRCF as it pertains to their financing structure for the 2 hotel properties on Marine Avenue, ultimately allowing them to procure new loans, effectively refinance the old construction loan, and then pull additional capital assets out to complete construction of the 3rd hotel site, which is currently underway. The new Homewood Suites property, footings have, I believe, been framed and are close to being poured, and they're soon to go vertical at that site. This is the first loan of a 2-part transaction that will come back and complete in February. This action and approval of the estoppel and associated escrow instructions will allow them to procure $56 million of funds from ACRC, also known as Ares, And with that, they'll continue construction of the Homewood Suites property, and then they'll be back to us next month pursuing the closing document with Far East National Bank for the remaining $29 million of funds, I believe it is, somewhere in that ballpark, for finalization of the project. So we're excited about this. Ultimately, it allows us to reduce our site-specific tax revenue pledge to the project from a total of $8.5 million of funds to now $3 million of funds, and ultimately will accelerate our access to those very critical general fund revenues at the site. Our recommendation is you approve the estoppel and authorize the escrow instructions. There'll be a companion item that is a consent calendar item as part of your city council agenda.
So it's a good thing. Okay, anybody from there's no lights on, anybody from the public want to say anything? Okay, is there a motion?
Motion to approve item I-1, approve the escrow instructions needed for TRCF.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, motion carries. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn to February 2nd?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're back to council. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Ginsburg.
Here.
Councilmember Brand.
Here.
Councilmember Horvath.
Here.
Councilmember San Marco. Here. Councilmember Emdy.
Here.
Mayor Asfel.
Here, a lot of roll calls. Okay, we have blue folder items here.
He's okay.
It tickles. N1, H7, H8, H9, H17, and L1, and N4. So is there a motion
Motion,
to add these?
motion received.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
These are late editions we really haven't read yet, but we'll work on it quickly. Okay, next thing up is the consent calendar. And these are items voted on all at one time unless they're pulled. And it's H1. You good for everything? Through H19.
Yeah, I've already discussed with staff several topics, so yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Anything to pull?
No, but I wanted to point out, one of the items on the consent calendar, H17, is we're allocating $50,000 to help with outreach for the homeless. We've, it was part of a recommendation from the Homeless Task Force. It's an important change in our community. It's been a great increase in the homeless. And so, just so people know, we're addressing it and we're spending significant monies on it. And we're working with county agencies and a nonprofit agency called PATH. So, yeah, we're not standing by doing nothing.
Good point. It's a fact. We are trying to address this issue. Okay, Christian.
I don't want to pull anything, but I want to, a couple things I do want to talk about real quick. One, to Bill's point, on next Monday, there's actually, we're doing a count of the homeless people. So if you're interested in that, there is some information at the the South Bay Council of Cities of Government website if you want to actually help count how many homeless people we have here in the South Bay. And then our H9 item is about another program called Y-Green Energy Fund. And this is a great thing. There's two programs right now for people out there. One's called Hero, and this is the other one that we're passing. And it allows you to basically upgrade your home to make it more energy efficient. And you can, instead of paying right up front, you can actually defer the cost to your property taxes. In some cases, depending on your tax bracket, you can actually save money on the cost. So just want to make people aware of it because they're actually really good programs.
Okay. Steve?
I'm good.
Laura?
No.
I'm good. And before we vote on it, somebody from the audience wants to discuss H9. James Ross?
Mr. Mayor, council members and staff, thank you for having us on your agenda tonight. My name is James Ross. I'm with Y-Green Energy Fund. We've been working with Rob Osborne very closely, and I actually just wanted to make an appearance and see if there were any additional questions about our program to any of the residents or any of you as well. So I am here if there are any further questions. I can outline the differences in our programs, and I can highlight some of the advantages that you're bringing in that are not currently available under the HERO program. So thank you guys very much.
Go for it. Why don't you explain it?
Well,
Sure.
You got to Well, how much time do you need? Because you have us at hello.
Got 3 minutes.
Go ahead, you
I'll
got,
be super
go
quick.
ahead, 3 minutes.
So our program is very similar to the other programs. We actually adopted our own legislation that allows additional benefits that are not currently available. So if you're familiar with Mello-Roos special tax assessments, our financing is through the property taxes as a Mello-Roos tax. So rather than having the full amount show up as a lien, ours is actually a Mello-Roos tax. So lenders and title companies have seen that for a number of years. Also, we can provide financing for commercial, residential, multifamily properties, not only residential. So that's going to expand a lot of options for you as well. We also have the longest
To
repayment.
do what? I think there's people who don't know what you're talking about.
Sure, I'm sorry, guys. And so our company, Y-Green, provides 100% financing for energy or water-saving measures for your property. We can provide that for commercial, multifamily, residential properties. So basically, every property would pretty much qualify. As long as you have 10% equity available in your property, you can finance measures for up to 30 years, including solar panels or drought-resistant landscaping or cool walls or a new roof right now, especially with the El Nino season. I work with the contractors locally. I teach them how to use the program, and I provide education for homeowners as well. Hopefully that clears it up a little bit.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate it. Okay, anybody else want to say anything? Okay, is there a motion for H1 through 19?
A motion to approve consent calendar H1 through H19.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed?
Okay. H9, adopt by title only resolution number CC-1601-003, a resolution of City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, consenting to inclusion of properties within the city's jurisdiction in the California Home Finance Authority program to finance renewable energy, energy and water efficiency improvements and electric vehicle charging infrastructure, approving associate member in the joint exercise of power authority related thereto, and authorize the mayor to execute an identification and insurance agreement. Adopt by title only resolution number CC-1601-004, a resolution of the City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, consenting to inclusion of properties within the city's jurisdiction in the California Home Finance Authority Community Facilities District number 2014-1, clean energy to finance renewable energy improvements, energy efficiency and water conservation improvements, and electric vehicle charging infrastructure, and approving associate membership in the joint exercise of powers authority related thereto. H14, adopt by title only resolution number CC-1601-005, a resolution of City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, amending the official book of classifications by modifying the class specifications for the executive assistant to the police chief position. H15, adopt by four-fifths vote and by title only resolution number CC-1610-010, a resolution of City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, authorizing fiscal year 2015-2016 budget modification to appropriate $61,688 from the Harbor Uplands Fund to the 2015-2016 annual budget for additional contracts and professional services expenditures within the Waterfront and Economic Development Department to construct and install 3 replacement slip fingers at Basin 3. H16, adopt by title only resolution number CC-1601-011, a resolution of City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, to authorize the mayor of the City of Redondo Beach to execute the certifications and assurances for the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program, and adopt by title only resolution number CC-1610-0112, a resolution of City Council, City of Redondo Beach, California, to authorize the execution of the Low Carbon Transit Operations Program, LCTOP, project, Regional Smart Card Ticket Vending Machine Project, and Beach Cities Transit Bus Pass Subsidies Program in the amount of $25,136. H18, adopt by title only resolution number CC-1601-013, a resolution of City Council, City of Redondo Beach, amending the official book of classifications, class specifications for building inspector and senior building inspector. Thank you, Mayor.
That's the fun part about being on the council. Okay, now's the time for public participation on non-agenda items. Everybody gets a chance to talk. We want you to hold it to 3 minutes. We usually allot 30 minutes, but if we can go over, we have to. 30 minutes total. We have written requests to be taken first, and this is, at least the public participation. Sarah Burns.
Good evening, Mr.
Hello.
Mayor, and council, staff, and residents of Redondo Beach. My name is Sarah Burns, and I'm here to introduce myself. And I would also like to acknowledge the staff. So that's my purpose for being here tonight. I've been a Redondo Beach resident since 2002. And for the first few years of that, I was a public school teacher at Roosevelt High School in East LA. And I retired from that, and I've been in recovery ever since then. So it's taken me a while to get here, but I've been watching you all on TV, and I must say you're all much better looking in person.
Oh, you're running for office now, aren't you?
Never, never. First of all, I would like to say I've been a very active member of the Redondo Beach Sailing Club for the last 6 years. So I want to thank all the taxpayers in Redondo Beach for subsidizing my sailing lessons and my learning to sail on the city boats. And I'm paying for that with my annual dues, and I also scrub the bottoms of the dinghies, and I flush out the diesel engines. So I'm trying to take good care of city property. I'm also a graduate of the last CERT Academy, which I found to be an incredible program, and I am working with my homeowners association to get all the residents of my 40 condo complex ready for the earthquake when it happens. Mm-hmm. And I'm also actively recruiting people for the next academy. I think it's a wonderful program, so I thank you all for that. And also, I'm a very active public education advocate and also an advocate for veterans housing. So if those things ever come up, you'll see me for that. And what I want to be especially grateful for tonight is regarding the waterfront. I read the draft environmental impact report, and I had some questions and some concerns. And I want to thank my council member, Jeff Ginsburg, for teaching me how to create a Comcate request, which I did. I had 3 separate ones submitted in December, and I would like to thank Eleanor Manzano and Lupe Cazares and Stephen Proud for helping to fulfill my requests on that. It's, like I say, I'm starting from zero, so they've really been training me quite a lot here. But I really appreciate what I'm learning and hope to be an informed and active participant in civic life. And last but not least, I was happy to read the core values of the city. So the core values, I didn't know, but they are openness and honesty, integrity and ethics, accountability, outstanding customer service, teamwork, excellence, environmental responsibility, and fiscal responsibility. And I'm just going to add my personal ones, since those are the cities. And my personal core value is being respectful. So that's how I intend to show up in city business. And with each person I meet, no matter what your opinion, I will treat you with respect, kindness, and honesty. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Welcome.
nice, thank you. Okay, we can end it on that. Okay, next up, Ross Yasno.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Ross Yasno, Redondo Beach. I've been here much of the last 30 years. I've had a couple of businesses in King Harbor. In the 90s, I was part of the first wave runner business. It was called Aquamotion. I think we were the first people trying to rent wave runners out of there. It was a lot more fun than profit. But in the 80s, I was editor of the Redondo Beach News, and my first office was up on top of the pier. I was actually a stone's throw away from where the Chamber of Commerce is now. Redondo Beach News, for years, we used to run on page 2 an item called Historical Redondo, and all sorts of different stuff. And when I had pictures, great. And when I didn't have, I went to Gloria Snyder. Now, any of you who have been here any length of time remember Gloria she was the historian in the area, long before there was the Wikipedia and the internet. Even the New York Times called Gloria. So I was privileged to be friends with her for a couple of years, and she taught me a lot about Redondo Beach. Now, I've been reading and hearing for months now at various hearings, people talking about, hey, there used to be a theater here. And that's true. There was a theater here, but that was a long time ago. And There was also a couple of theaters at the corner of Torrance and Catalina. There was a drive-in across from Bishop Montgomery. In fact, I gave Katie Olston a list of 10 theater complexes that have closed just in the last 20 years or so here in the Beach Cities and Torrance. And it's not because people don't watch movies anymore, but 3D, DVD, 80-inch screens, the cost of going out, Netflix. We're just not trending towards people going to the movies. So, personally, I'm not against growth. And when I say that, I was chairman of the Library Commission when we bought out Pep Boys to build the library. I was one of the original founders of the foundation that helped build the second library over in North Park, in the North Branch. And I voted for the Shade Hotel in Redondo Beach. And it looked like we needed every vote we could get. But I think this is kind of an overstuffed project, and I just really wish we'd really reconsider the theater. I just think it's going to be a loser in a real short amount of time. And lastly, I'm not going to use the term mall. That's for others to use. But I think when you remove boat slips and trailer spots from more parking spaces, when you take down a fishing pier for a theater and you shrink the only place to swim to make room for more bars, restaurants, and shops, how are you using King Harbor as a harbor? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Laura Zahn.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. And yes, sir, there was a movie theater there. I watched Bambi. Watched Bambi's mother die, and I've never been the same. In the interest of time, I'm going to be speaking on the waterfront, and my title is Land Exchanged or Land Lost. I have verbatim a legal document that I typed, but in the essence of time, I'm going to shorten it, so sit down and put on your seatbelts because I'm going to go. It's California Public Resource Code, PRC, Section 6307, and the land exchange involves Basin 3, which is owned by the City of Redondo Beach, I'm sure you know, and it's owned by the taxpayers and property owners of the City of Redondo Beach. CenterCal wants the city to trade Basin 3 for the Tidelands, which is the Tidelands area where Sambas is, and it goes extending out to where the base of Polly's Pier is. They want to exchange that, which is public trust land, for Basin 3, so CenterCal can build their market square on the Tidelands. It says the commission may enter into an exchange with any person or any private or public entity of field or reclaimed tide and submerged lands or beds of navigable waterways or interest in these lands that are subject to the public trust for commerce, navigation, and fisheries, or for other lands or interest in lands if the commission finds that all the following conditions are met. There are 6 conditions and subsets, but I'm going to have to truncate some of those. Point 2, the lands or interest in lands to be acquired in the exchange will provide a significant benefit to the public trust. Remember, commerce, navigation, and fishing. The public trust purposes, the land exchanged, which is Basin 3, already supports those. No new or additional purposes will be significantly provided by taking out Basin 3 for Tidelands. Point 3, the exchange does not substantially interfere with the public rights of navigation and fishing. The exchange will significantly interfere with public rights of navigation and fishing, 1, by placing on demand the drawbridge, which will restrict entrance and egress to Basin 3, which is where the fishing boats and the excursion boats go. And at the end of the evening, it will be permanently in a down position. It also possibly has the removal of Polly's Pier. Not guaranteed, but there's a possibility that once that changes out of state-controlled lands under the public trust auspice, it could go and be demolished. So with Polly's Pier, which does provide whale watching, sport fishing, ocean view dining, an authentic place to view and observe wildlife and their habitats out in nature, not a manufactured marine land or a little aquarium, out in actual nature, seeing it raw in the wild, and the old-fashioned wooden pier. 4, the monetary value of the lands and interest received in the trust are equal to or greater than that of the lands or the interest given. Who can say that taking down a historic old pier, which is a unique piece of the South Bay, could ever be duplicated by something that's manufactured in concrete? The lands or interest in lands exchanged have been cut off from the water or access? They have not.
Laura,
Yes.
you wrap it up when you can. We got your 3 minutes.
Okay.
I'll let you go a little bit
Okay,
longer. Go
okay.
ahead.
We've got, and in closing, it says, two more things. The exchange is in the best interest of the state. This exchange is only in the best interest of CenterCal or whoever they sell the project to, not the people of the state of California. And then it says, to enhance the waterfront and nearshore development or redevelopment for public trust purposes. The public trust purposes are commerce, navigation, and fisheries, not shopping, eating, movie-going. Nothing in this plan from CenterCal does anything to enhance the public trust purposes. And in closing, to preserve, enhance, or create wetlands, riparian, or littoral habitats or open space. Nothing in this plan from CenterCal will preserve, enhance, or create anything of nature or the natural environment. It will add more concrete, more congestion, more trash, more waste, more traffic, not to mention a huge carbon footprint. And I have handouts if anybody would like them. Waterfront development or waterfront destruction. The nautical flags are a symbol of SOS, which used to be Save Our Ship. Now I'm saying it's Save Our Sea.
Okay, you want to, is there a
you.
motion to receive and file? Okay, go ahead. You can hand them to our clerk. If you'd like to give them to us, you can hand them to Eleanor and she'll give them to us.
Oh, but they're the little handouts. Oh, come on,
Okay,
Oh, do they have a website too? Okay.
thank you. Okay, next up, Cheryl Tier.
Hello, Mayor and council members. I'm Cheryl Tier. I have lived in Redondo Beach for 47 years. And I have some comments about the CenterCal development. I'm concerned about the really lack of response to community issues that have been brought up. It might look like there's been real community involvement in the waterfront development. There have been meetings together, public input at the beginning, during the scoping process, again, during this latest DEIR comment period. However, I don't see much evidence that any of the main concerns that have been raised have been incorporated into the CenterCal's plans. Interestingly, as I responded to the DEIR, part of the executive summary in the DEIR listed a general summary of the majority of the issues raised by citizens during the scoping process. These sound amazingly like the things I'm still concerned about. So this is from their summary. It states, concerns, Pacific Avenue reconnection, noise, traffic, and safety of pedestrians and bicyclists. Second, economic feasibility, concern that the new development might not be financially feasible and the site would once again become run down. 3, traffic, want to have a traffic study to analyze a large enough area, including adjacent Hermosa Beach. 4, aesthetic impacts, in particular, the height of development in relation to current conditions and the impact to adjacent uses. Reduced density. This new development would be a shopping mall, and concern over density and heights of the building was strong. 6, boat ramp. It should be at an appropriate size and location. 7, Seaside Lagoon. There's concerns about safety of an open lagoon for children, water quality impacts, and use by sea lions. Open space. More open space is desirable. Location and size of the new proposed parking structure at the northern end of the project site. Well, in my looking at the DEIR, none of these were really addressed. None of them have been incorporated. So my question is, why does CenterCal ask for public input if it's not going to respond to it? The plan should reflect what the community wants, not just what the developer wants. More than ever, I see this development as a bloated, financially infeasible, and poorly planned development. I would urge you to halt this development, come up with a feasible plan that also incorporates the AES property, and let's do it right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That's the end of the written comments. Anybody else? Come on down.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Hello. Hi, City Council. I'm Gina DiPietro, and I'm here to talk about the waterfront. First things first, do you love Redondo Beach? I love Redondo Beach. I love Redondo Beach. And when I think about Redondo Beach, I think about women in bikinis getting some sun. That's what you think about. You go to the beach and
You address
see
us,
women.
please.
I'm talking to you too.
Okay.
See women in
I'm used to getting
bikinis
ignored by women,
on
so.
the sand.
Rules are you're supposed to kind of talk to the council. This isn't a comedy show. I know we try to make it that way sometimes, and you may think it is, but address the council. Thank you.
I'm so sorry, Mayor
I know, we're
Aspel.
just trying to do the rules.
Do you accept my apology?
I would always accept your apology. You can
Oh,
start over in
thanks.
your 3 minutes.
All right, well, in any case, bikinis, women in bikinis. That's why tourists come or go anywhere. That's why they go to Florida. That's why they go to Cancun. They go for the women in bikinis having a good time on the sand. And do you know what this project with Center Cal will do? There will be no more women in bikinis having fun on the sand around the pier. That's not going to attract tourists. Who wants to go to the mall in a bikini? I don't want to go to the mall in a bikini. I want to go to the beach in a bikini. And you should really be thinking about these sort of things, especially when you consider the amount of empty retail space in the South Bay. Who wants a big, giant, concrete, empty space right in Redondo Beach? I don't. I want to attract tourists for the right things, for our open space, for our beautiful wildlife, our birds, our beaches, and our bikinis. Thank you very much, City Council.
3 Bs, I like that. Okay. Thank you. All right, top that.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Wayne Craig. I'm actually probably unique. I was born in the city of Redondo Beach, South Bay Hospital up the street, and I share the same birthday, April 29th, as the city when it was founded, so I guess that's unique.
There you go.
All right. But with that said, I'm a real estate agent, I'm a developer, and I'm for development, but I'm for reasonable development. In looking at the DAR, there's a lot of unusual things that aren't really addressed as being a problem. One, I don't see how 12,500 cars a day on a street that doesn't have left turn lanes is not a problem. I think it should be an issue. Parking, there's 140% more development and only 8% more parking. If you do the math, that means there's over 200 more parking spaces that are not available for this shopping center. Where are they going to park? On the street. I live on South Broadway. Parking's already tough there already. So I can only imagine how it's going to be with 200 more cars surfing around trying to find spots to park. The views. Structure going to block about 80% of the view, about 45 feet high. I'm just wondering, has anyone talked to the 601 condo owners of the village? And the village Seascape 1 and Seascape 2. I'm sure a loss of view is going to have an impact on their value of their property. Just figuring that 5% drop in value, that's over $40 million that's going to take a hit there. What's that going to do for the city tax revenue? I mean, that's how basically we get revenue from that. Water quality issues, 25% of the water samples of the lagoon, or around the harbor, don't pass standards for E. coli and other stuff that boats drop off. How is people swimming in that going to be safe? That's an issue. Apparently that's not an environmental impact either. Recreational ocean access for the trailers, it's going to go from 67 down to 20. This isn't a harbor anymore. People aren't going to have access to even bring their boats down to launch. And finally, the access ramp, there's a lot of safety issues. The same ramp that's going to have boats is going to have kayakers, is going to have sand and paddle boaters and swimmers in the same area. In the draft report, it says we're going to address all this in safety issues. There's no page in there about safety issues at all. And finally, just the feasibility of the whole project. There was an article, a puff piece that was put in the New York Times last week that talked about this big project, and basically it was a paid reporter who basically works for one of the marketing companies, I guess one of our city planning managers works for. The question I had was, there's an issue in there about a water fountain feature that looks like Bellagio. Actually, the Center Cal wants to put a Bellagio-type electronic fountain with nighttime entertainment for the whole South Bay. I don't know anyone who moved here to the South Bay to get nighttime fountains and walk down to the beach. I mean, I think we need to have a responsible development. I think we have an opportunity here to make a plan for the city for the next 100 years. And as we heard, AES is on the table too. I think we need to look at all things considered and really look at something that's going to benefit the whole city, not just a developer for 2 or 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Got the boot.
Got the boot.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Penny Wersing. I'm a 13-year resident of District 2, and I am personally very much looking forward to the renewed waterfront under the proposed project. I personally have attended a number of meetings where public comments have been discussed. I understand that not everyone will love every aspect, but in my mind, that is not justification for doing nothing, which is exactly the position that has been repeatedly put forth over the last decade. I'm a member of the community, and unlike previous speakers, I do support this project.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Come on down.
Delia Becky, District 2. This come out of my mind, listen people talking in favor again of different things. I have a question for all of you. I received from the Board of Realtors the value of properties in the beach cities. Redondo, the square foot is $580 per square foot. Manhattan Beach and Hermosa, that used to be, believe me, when I came here and worked in Hermosa, was the beach man city. Today, it's double and more than the value of Redondo, and Manhattan don't even talk about that. I wonder why the value of our property are going down and down and down. It's my asset. Please think about that.
Good evening, City Council, Mayor. I'm Arnett Travis, 25-year resident of Redondo Beach, and I just want to again express my appreciation to the city for moving forward with the DEIR process, all of our citizens that have taken out the time to make comments. A couple of things come to my mind as I've listened to the exchanges. One in particular is that the EIR points out possible impacts and possible mitigations. They've done that. How can anyone expect that these things are solved before the process has even played out, which it has not as yet? So I want to say to the people who are concerned about their comments, their input, their concerns not being taken into account, wait until it's done. It's not a done deal as yet. Another thing I am looking forward to, Seaside Lagoon. We have concerns about swimming there now. That now is the time when it's unsafe. In the future, once it is opened up to natural tidal flow, it'll be a completely different experience for everyone. It'll be like going to the beach down by the avenues here in Redondo. The ability that people possess to do basic math calculations and saying that, oh, we've got this number times this number, and it's going to be this many cars, it's going to be that many people, or that much of an impact. Come on, we can all do basic math. Okay, my fifth grade grandson can do that. And you can base it on anything you want. But let's look at it for what it really is. It's a great project. It's a great opportunity. I applaud the Wall Street Journal article from the standpoint of pointing out that public and private partnerships can work. And I think, or look forward to this one working. And I think that we can do it as a city.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, Councilman and Mayor Haspel. My name is Joy Corradetti, and I've lived in Redondo Beach since 1988, mostly within one block of the ocean. I guess for the last year and a half, I've been living in District 2. Anyway, I, too, am very passionate about Redondo Beach. I've traveled all over the United States and Canada with my business, and I've settled in Redondo Beach because I love this city. I truly, truly love this city. And I believe that we need to make very good changes for this city for the next 3, 4, 5 generations. I really applaud the CenterCal project. I'm totally behind board with that. I think that when I saw the video, I was so impressed. And I think it's going to be beautiful for the city of Redondo and also for the people here. I've kind of coined the phrase of Redondo Beach being LA's best kept secret. And it has been a secret down here. And now it's time for us to open our doors to fellow Angelenos to come down and support our city and to, be part of it and the thriving community. As you probably know, I also own a business down on the International Boardwalk, and I can tell you there are no people right now walking in bikinis. The city down there, it is crumbling. It's not bringing in, ample people to support the businesses down there, and we do need support. So I had no idea that I was going to speak tonight, but I'm speaking from the heart and saying I just truly love the CenterCal project. I think it's great for Redondo Beach. I just can't wait for it to happen, and I think it's going to really beautify our city and make our city really wealthy again. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on down.
Good evening, Jim Light, District 1. I just wanted to dispel a few myths that might have been promulgated tonight. First off, I've probably talked to thousands of people about the waterfront development over the past several years, and the vast majority of them, I can tell you, aren't sitting there saying do nothing. We all love our city. We all love the harbor. We want to see it revitalized. What we don't like is overdevelopment and impacting what we love about the harbor, which is the water, the boats, and using that for recreational and actually the commercial uses. A lot of people love the commercial fishing boats. Second, to sit there and think that we're going to make substantive changes to this thing after the DEIR is not in the history of Redondo Beach. I've seen it in other towns, but it doesn't happen here. Once the project is described to the detail it is in the DEIR, there may be some minor changes to the window dressing, but the bulk of it has not changed in this town unless the citizens react and actually get the whole project rescinded. And none of us want to go down that path. We've been talking about this since 2002. We'd like to get a good project, but as people have brought up before, we feel ignored. If you look at the comments to the NOP, to the NOP session, scoping session, there were hundreds of comments crying for the city to drop the density. And yet when we saw this EIR come out, it was even worse than what we had been presented along the way. All of a sudden we discovered sport fishing pier could be gone. It's optional and there's no significant impact if it's gone. Nowhere was that talked about in any meeting with the public. And then if you've read deeper in this 6,000-page report, which I kind of think might have been put out there to daunt the public into not reading it in detail, we find 50% of the slips in Basin 3 could be eliminated. And again, it cited no significant impact. And that's the theme you hear throughout the EIR. No significant impact, no significant impact. You're going to put up hundreds and hundreds of feet, longer than the Wailing Wall of development on Harbor Drive, and it says that there's no significant view impact. Even the Heart of the City EIR, which those of you who have been here long enough I decried as the worst EIR I'd ever read, said that that was going to be a significant impact. How this thing got past city staff and to the public and calling it a draft EIR ready for prime time is laughable. The thing is biased, and it's very obvious when you read the thing. And, submitted hundreds of pages of report on that, so have some other organizations. And I just think the city is headed down the road of going head-to-head with the citizens again if we don't start steering this towards real compromise. So with that, I'll close, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else, come on down. We got a few more minutes left.
Evening, Mayor, Council. I have been a resident of Redondo Beach for exactly 40 days.
What's your name, sir?
Thank you.
What's your name?
Thrilled to be here.
Your name's thrilled to be here? No, what's your name?
Brian.
Brian.
Brian Dean.
For the record, okay, thanks.
I'm a small business owner. I have a small marketing and web company. My wife and I moved down here from Santa Monica. We moved cross country from the East Coast, and we settled in Santa Monica for job reasons, but now we've developed our business. And the reason we left Santa Monica is because of the traffic, the congestion, the garbage, diapers on the beach, watermelon rinds. You can never find any parking. And all of this started, you know, a couple of decades ago when they developed the pier for tourism and they developed the 3rd Street Promenade. And it has just become a very congested and dirty and crowded and loud city. And about a year ago, we came down to visit Redondo. Friends had told us about it. And wow, this amazing wooden pier, a sense of history and charm, Tony's. In the 40 days, so we decided this is it. This is where we want to go. Beautiful ocean views. And after we moved here, in the 40 days we've been here, we've already been to the pier about 6 or 7 times, to restaurants and pubs. And we were just shocked right around Christmas when we learned about a concrete pier in development with a late show and big fountains and hotels and everything that we ran away from in Santa Monica. So I just wanted to give you my emotional take on it. And wow, I think compromise and reason is something you should seriously consider, because Santa Monica is really, you know, just a place we ran away from because of all those reasons. Thank you.
Okay. Half hour to this, but we have a few more. We'll give a few more people here. Come on down. We have a very full agenda tonight. A lot more. As we get into it, there'll be a lot more of the harbor issues to talk about too.
Good evening. My name is Sheila Lamb. I'm in San Marcos District, and I'm a 30-year resident of South Bay, 20 years in Redondo Beach. And I'm here to talk about the waterfront development. When people think of the Redondo Beach waterfront, they think of old buildings, crumbling infrastructure, and for some it's a place that they just would not go. It's not safe, it's run down. But the waterfront is really about people. Every day, people are congregating in and around the waterfront. And people are the core of the waterfront. For people, more important than buildings and parking structures are the spaces, are the public spaces that are around these structures. So you might say these public spaces are opportunities. Some say opportunities for commercial investment. Others say opportunities for the common good for people of the city of Redondo Beach. The common good. And often these two goals are in opposition to each other. From my involvement attending meetings, I've come to understand that the question in regards to the waterfront that the city is asking is, how can we fix these buildings with limited resources? That's how we got into our partnership with CenterCal. But I believe that the question really is, how can we make this public space work so that it attracts all people of Redondo Beach, all ethnicities, all economic levels, all ages, all abilities, all people, and that it can become the place where all the people of Redondo Beach want to be, and people from other areas as well. A public space that actually makes a difference in people's lives. A public space that is not just another mall where we can go to J. Crew and buy $25 hamburgers. Our waterfront can be so much greater than that. Let us not demean our public spaces by prioritizing commercial uses. If we create spaces that prioritize people and recreational uses, we will see the waterfront come alive. And come alive because it's designed with people in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Time for one or two more? Non-agenda items?
Hello, my name is Kay Gagnon, Redondo Beach resident for about 3 years now. My number one concern about the waterfront development is traffic. I lived in Manhattan Beach prior to this, and my personal commute time doubled when the El Segundo Plaza was put in. And my commute was a very short commute on PCH. I'm so glad I retired on December 1st because I won't have to traverse PCH anymore. When the development as proposed goes in, I think it will have a huge impact on traffic. My experience in Manhattan Beach with the Metlocks property was that we had a developer that came in and they wanted to develop the entire, it was probably about a 3-block square area. And, you know, that's what developers do. I respect that. But with community, city leadership, and the developer working together, we were able to scale that project back. There's really only one property on Metlocks that hasn't been occupied consistently. So I think there's some lessons learned in your very close vicinity. I'm willing to work on that. I think we can get the people of Manhattan Beach, some of the leadership that was involved with that, to work on that. But I don't see this city working on compromise. I see a lot of talk, and I don't see compromise in action. And compromise is not the only solution, but I would hate to see overdevelopment on such a pristine piece of property. You know, I've given up dreaming about a park because I think people in Redondo Beach are concerned about the financials. I am concerned about the financials as well. However, I'm really concerned about the way this deal is structured, that developer needs to make a profit. So it just makes sense to me that, geez, if I never need to make a profit, then I'll never really have to pay off the city. So there's a conundrum in there that I think needs to be looked at. Also, one of the things I discovered when I moved down here 3 years ago was the wooden pier and the Polly's on the Pier restaurant and the boating and the fishing off that pier. And I would hate to see that lost. I was in Marina del Rey for about 4 years with a boat, and the boating community is just so much fun. There's so much good that comes out of that. And I think there's a financial draw to boating. And I don't see the transportation part of boating nor the commerce part of boating in this proposal, so that's a concern of mine. And finally, please value the views and work with your citizens and listen to them, because I was at about half of the visioning things, the visioning sessions, and everybody was talking about exploiting the views, having open interactive space, and I'm sure we can work with this developer to help them make a profit and to help our property values go up and make our commuting at least negotiable. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing nobody else who wants to speak on non-agenda items, we're going to move on. One more? Come on down.
And good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name's Tom Gray. I'm a 30-year resident of the South Bay. I'm a homeowner, business owner for many, many years here. I've been following the whole waterfront proposal and all. I don't have any prepared remarks, but what I will tell you is there's so many things I'm in favor of the project. The public market is fantastic. Looking forward to that. Movie theater, boutique movie theater, where you can get a glass of wine perhaps and some food would be great. And then the open Seaside Lagoon, looking forward to that. I read the financial opportunities and problems with the parking structure, and it doesn't make sense to spend $18 million to keep that going for another 10 to 15 years. So I'd really rethink that. That doesn't seem to be something that's really in our financial best interest. So anyway, move ahead with this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move it along to our next on the agenda. It is a public hearing, and it's a public hearing to consider the following actions for a proposed senior assisted living facility at 320 Nob Hill, as submitted, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to ask for a motion to open the public hearing.
I have to recuse myself because I was on the school board and I voted for this project.
You were on the
then,
school
so
board, correct,
I have
okay.
to recuse myself, sorry.
And hold on.
Motion to open the public hearing. Second.
Okay,
I have to,
gotcha. Okay, any ex parte disclosures?
Yeah, I've had emails, text messages, voicemails, and it's been a discussion at my community meeting along with a presentation.
Bill?
Yeah, I've had several discussions with multiple residents. I've discussed it with staff, and I've also discussed it with the project developer, as well as some school board members.
Christian?
Yeah, I've discussed it with staff, with the developer, school board, and that's it.
Same thing, residents, staff, school board.
Same thing, everything.
Santa Claus.
Myself included. We've talked to everybody in this room on this thing, probably. And then some. This is for,
That photo right there. That one right there.
oh, Pat, there's two here. Okay, the public hearing's open. Would you like to give us a staff report? And that's you, Aaron?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We're pleased this evening to have the Kensington project before you. I wanted to call your attention to receiving and filing the two items. One is a comment letter from Delia Vecchi, and the second is a typographical correction to your resolution 1601007, inserting the language that was inadvertently left out in that condition. Tonight we will have a bit of a presentation. Anita Kroger will start off with a discussion and background for the mayor and council and the audience's benefit. The developer will then have a brief presentation, and the applicant here, which is the school district and Fountain Square Kensington Group. So with that, we'll start with Anita Kroger.
Thank you. Here is a vicinity map of the project, and as you can see, it is located west of PCH, between Nob Hill and Avenue I, with residences to the west. Here we have an aerial view of the project. The aerial view gives you a better idea of the properties that are located around it, so you can see across the street, for example, to the east, there's a strip mall. You can also see that the property line, the westerly property line of the site, is irregular, and that's because the property on the west side of Nob Hill was purchased later, and that is, we refer to that as the 1929 kindergarten building. It also shows, just as you'll note, that most of the property right now is paved, and we hope that'll change with the project. Thank you. Here is our two views, two of the most, I guess, popular or well-known views, both looking from east to west. They're both from PCH. One is down Nob Hill, and one is down Avenue A. What we have is some background information. So the general plan, the local coastal plan, and the coastal zoning for this site, which is 3.37 acres large, is public community facility. A brief history of the site. This site was initially purchased by the school board, or the Redondo Beach Unified School District, in 1907. In 1929, they built that adjacent lot, and they constructed the kindergarten building, which is the 1929 kindergarten building. That building is considered to be Spanish colonial with tile, and it's considered to be a historic resource. After that, that is actually the only building that survived the 1933 earthquake. After that, all the buildings, the other buildings, were demolished, and 9 new structures were built during the period of 1957 to 1962. In 1983, and again in 2007, the school district declared it, the 7-Eleven committee of the school district declared it a surplus site. The structure is currently occupied, or the site is currently occupied by the California Department of Education. Prior to that, the city was on the site, as was a private school, Cardin Dominion. We've looked at the surrounding developments. Again, we have single family to the west and south, multifamily to the north, and commercial primarily to the east. Here's a composite view of all these. So the north side of Nob Hill, you can see there's multifamily residences, and then you can see that little strip mall. Second row, we have the south side of Nob Hill. You can see the driveway that goes into the parking lot and those two large red flowering gum trees. They're on city property and they will be preserved. Then you can see the offices, and then behind that tree is the 1929 kindergarten building. On the north side of Avenue I, it basically has different shots of the school site. And then on the south side of Avenue I, we have different single-family homes that are of different ages, most of them built in the 1920s, of various historic types of architecture, bungalow, Spanish, etc. What's the project? Well, it starts off with demolishing 9 of the 10 buildings. It preserves the 1929 kindergarten building, and it looks at constructing a 2-story building, maximum height 33 feet, of 80,000 square feet of an assisted living facility, which, using the jargon of the state, and is the residential care facility for the elderly. Part of the project, there's numerous types of common areas and support areas. There's 96 suites with 130 beds. There'll be 70 on-site parking spaces. Of those, there'll be 5 electrical vehicle charging stations, some bicycle racks. And then we have the driveways. There will be 2 driveways, one off of Avenue A and one off of Nob Hill. It's important to note that the trash vehicles, emergency vehicles, using Avenue A onto the site will have to exit onto Nob Hill, so they will not be able to exit back onto Avenue A. Another important thing is to talk about what are all the different definitions of senior housing. There's a lot of confusion. Well, there's senior housing, the kind where an apartment or a condominium project declares themselves to be senior. In other words, they only want to have people living there above a certain age, because they don't want to live with families and children. Okay, that's a preference. Then you have assisted living facilities. These are facilities that provide a certain amount of care to the residents. Then you have the definition of a residential care facility for the elderly. And that meets certain definition of the state. What we're talking about here is unique. It's an assisted living facility specifically for individuals who have memory impairment. If you look at throughout Redondo Beach, there are many, many different types of senior housing facilities. Across the street on Broadway, we have an apartment. You have to be above a certain age to live there. But we only have one other assisted facility for people with memory impairment in the city, and that's at the Beach Cities Health District, Silverado. That facility does provide those services. It's the only one in town. This would be another one. This gives you an idea of the proposed site plan. You can see the facility is what we call H-shaped. Starting at the top left, you have the existing 1929 kindergarten building to be preserved. Then you have a surface parking lot that runs along the west property line and on the north, and it sort of circles round to PCH, and that's where the front and main entrance is to the site. In the lower part of the H, there will be an interior security outdoor living space for the residents. There's also another small one located on Avenue A and a staff patio. There's also another outdoor area that's south of the kindergarten building. So if you can see that, I don't have a laser. Anyways, I think that pretty much describes the site. This is the proposed architecture of the site, showing all 4 sides. It's an architectural style, Mediterranean. So what are some of the main characteristics of Mediterranean? It's the red tile roof, the stucco walls. I realize it's kind of small to see, but there's various different things that add and contribute to that. There's different types of ironwork and grill work. There's styles of windows that are arched. You also have the intervening, basically covered paseos and pathways that are all characteristic of Mediterranean. Also on the site, and part of this approval, will be several signs. There'll be one monument sign that's going to be in the corner of PCH and Nob Hill. That'll be the main sign. There'll be a smaller sign, PCH and Avenue A, and then a very, very small sign on the Nob Hill driveway. If approved, one other thing to note is that this project will require a 10-foot wide dedication along PCH Avenue. It's only a dedication, so that means for now it will not be used, but the purposes are for future street widening. Let's see, what are some of the additional components? I already talked about the Mediterranean with Spanish influences. There's a total of 18,000 square feet of outdoor space. The landscaping and hardscaping will be water-wise, 35% of the site, which is great. The lighting will be respectful of the neighbors. I talked about the signage. There will be actually a requirement to provide as much possible solar energy from these buildings as possible. Operation. So this will be a state-licensed care facility for the elderly with cognitive impairment. The typical resident is 75 years plus, and I'm told actually the average age is 83 years. There's 3 levels of care. So there'll be the 58 suites, 26 and 12, and they start off with individuals who need some assistance, and then as they progress with their disease, medium to mild, and at the end, severe. The largest shift of workers occurs around the noon hour, and that'll be 44 employees. Okay, our favorite topic, the environmental review. We are now at the final environmental impact report. This environmental impact report, is going through the same process that the waterfront is. It starts off with basically an initial study. So we've actually been working on this, we as in the city, the applicant, and also we have environmental consultants here. We have a representative of MIG, Hogle Ireland. We've been working on this environmental report for over 2 years. So it started off with a public meeting, a scoping meeting, which was held in December of 2013. About 20 individuals and residents showed up at the meeting, including some of the residents that live next door. On December 18th, 2014, we sent out a notice of preparation, which said the draft EIR, DEIR, is ready. We welcome your comments. Those comments were taken between the period of June 11th for a 45-day review period. We now have an environmental impact report which shows 3 significant impacts unless mitigated. The first is the cultural resources. We have had an independent historic resources report prepared by consultants that does agree that the 1929 kindergarten building does have historic potential. And what it says is that if that building were to be removed, that would be a loss of that resource for the city. So one of the mitigations measures is that that building must be maintained the way it is and preserved basically according to the standards for preservation. The other 2 mitigation measures, or impacts, and then mitigation measures, have got to do with the generation of greenhouse gases, which we we talk about now in terms of climate change. So there are two mitigation measures. In order for this project not to exceed, basically, greenhouse gas measures or greenhouse gases in excess of a certain limit, the project needs to be constructed according to the standards, efficiency standards, 2013 Title 24 efficiency standards, but 5% higher than those standards. The other way to minimize greenhouse gas is to put on as many solar panels as is possible, and so that solar energy will be produced for the facility. So here's the approval entitlement process for this project. It's pretty extensive. First of all, the City Council needs to certify the EIR and the mitigation monitoring and reporting program. The City Council needs to adopt amendments for the general plan, the local coastal plan, and the coastal zoning ordinance. 3, the City Council needs to reaffirm the project entitlements that were approved by the Planning Commission in October of 2015, and we'll talk about those. After that, this project goes to the Coastal Commission. They need to approve proposed amendments to the local coastal program and to the coastal zoning ordinance. And after that, we have to send this amendments to the city. For the public, the Redondo residents need to approve this at basically an election. So that's the overall process. Now, if you want me to speed it up, I can, or I'll just keep going. It's up to you. So once again, in terms of looking at land use conformity and evaluating it, what we have is we have a general plan and the LCP, I'm going to call that. That's both the coastal plan and the ordinance. Both of them say this property is public. Furthermore, it says not only public, but it's public for community facility. The dilemma is that the proposed project, the assisted living, is not allowed in that zone. In order for this project to be approved, to be built, the city needs to basically adopt amendments to the general plan, the local coastal plan, the coastal zoning, etc. And those proposed text amendments are as written, but to summarize, it would conditionally allow this type of facility in a coastal zone, which is everything west of PCH, on a property that's public community facility, one that is on 1 acre or greater in size. So it's pretty specific. What are some of the criteria that the Planning Commission looked at? I'll go through it fairly quickly. They approved a conditional use permit. We looked at all the development standards. We said yes, it's appropriate for the site. It can be approved with discretion. It has access to the street. There's no adverse properties, except we've got the problem of the zoning. Then we looked at what's the Planning Commission design review. Planning Commission looked at all of these things, looked at the project very critically. What about who's going to use it? What are the impacts on the neighbors, the driveways, the relationship, the physical characteristics? We looked at the architectural style. How is the project organized, the circulation? All those things were looked at very specifically and discussed by the Planning Commission. The other things that the Planning Commission looks at is the need to approve a coastal development permit. And essentially, under a coastal development permit, what do we find? We find the same thing, that it can't be approved unless there are amendments to the local coastal program. And also that it's subject to CEQA, which is, again, our EIR document. Lastly, the Planning Commission looks at the vesting tentative tract map. So this is a map that takes the underlying lots. Right now, there are a number of underlying single-family lots that were just lumped together. Pre the Subdivision Map Act, if I basically owned a number of lots and built on them, they were considered consolidated. Today, you actually have to take a formal map you have to draw it as one property, and you have to record it with a county to consider it to be one property. And of course, this project, they've submitted the proper paperwork, and it meets our ordinance. So here we are at the recommendation. That wasn't that long after all. But the recommendation's quite long. Open the public hearing and take testimony. Adopt the 4 resolutions, and I won't read them out. One is for the environmental, one reaffirms the Planning Commission's approval, another one talks about amendments to the general plan, the next one amendments to the local coastal plan. Then it talks about introducing an ordinance, and that ordinance has to do with the coastal zoning amendments. Then we're going to ask the City Council to set aside February 16th, because it doesn't end here. On February 16th, we need the City Council to do the second reading of the ordinance, and we also need the City Council at that date to adopt a resolution which formally takes all these amendments for the local coastal plan and submits them to the Coastal Commission. Also on September 16th, we want the City Council to adopt a resolution submitting the amendments to a vote of the people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would the applicant want to say a few words before we get going? Come on up.
Mayor Aspel, council and staff, my name is Billy Shields. I'm with Fountain Square Development, the co-applicant with the Redondo Beach Unified School District for this proposed project that's before you. Fountain Square Development West consists of 4 principals. We've worked together for over 20 years. While working for other companies, we've developed, financed, operated hundreds of assisted living communities across the United States and Canada. Currently, Fountain Square Properties owns and operates 4 communities with another that's under construction. Fountain Square, as developer-operator, will lease the property from the school district, with whom we have submitted an application to develop the proposed assisted living community, the Kensington of Redondo Beach. The residents of this community, whose average age is about 83, will choose to live with us because they need assistance in activities of daily living, such as eating, bathing, dressing, reminders, and so on. The residents, along with their families, will seek medical professionals, and families and medical professionals will be seeking comfortable, safe environment, support with medical supervision, and the opportunity to socialize. This 96-suite community will consist of 3 neighborhoods to accommodate residents who have varying levels of need. In addition to the traditional assisted living suites, some of which will be large enough to accommodate couples, which is something that's becoming more and more common, we will also have 2 neighborhoods designed specifically for residents who have stages of memory loss. But it will not be a community that is exclusively designed and operated for those who have memory loss. By offering a range of programs, the Kensington of Redondo Beach will make it possible for residents to remain in the beach communities that they love, many of whom that appreciation for the beach community has been expressed tonight already. The current supply of assisted living in the beach communities is about 50% of what we would find typical in the United States using the 30 top metro areas in the country. That supply, as I referenced, includes this project as well as others that are in planning and also in construction in the beach community area. While over the last couple of years we've had an opportunity to do some outreach, the school district and we have gone out as a team and have had an opportunity to meet with many of you and others in the community. Councilman Ginsburg allowed us to introduce our project at his monthly meeting. We've hosted a couple of neighborhood meetings at the site ourselves, listening to neighbors and talking with them about the concerns, many of which were addressed in Anita's presentation. We met with the Chamber of Commerce Local Issues Committee, and they provided us with a letter of support following that was submitted to the Planning Commission. And most recently, we met with the Rotary Club and had a chance to exchange ideas and comments with them and answered questions as well. I think what's important is coming from those meetings, there was a few things that were common in each of those. And one of the primary concerns that came out of each of those was with the immediate neighbors was related to the potential noise that would be generated from deliveries and emergency vehicles. And if I can, I'm going to go through quickly, but in some detail as to what we've done. We've first quantified the type of delivery and the number of deliveries that would occur. Our primary vendor is the food service truck. It's a tractor trailer truck, and it comes once a week. Our trash collection is designed so that it can be picked up 3 times a week. There's another half dozen smaller trucks or vans that would deliver maybe fresh produce and things like, and for food service, kind of supplementing the food service program, and also other supplies, but they're smaller trucks. But the total of those is going to be about 10 to 15 deliveries a week, in addition to the trash and the primary food service. We've refined access off of Avenue A so that it becomes a one-way into the property, and it prevents delivery trucks from exiting onto Avenue A, and that was very important to the neighbors along Avenue A there. The delivery and trash pickup locations have been relocated or moved within the building so that it prevents trucks from having to back up at all and emit that noisy, that kind of nuisance noise of beep, beep, beep. So we think that we've at least diminished or eliminated that. We hope on the property. We're going to work with our deliveries so that they occur only between 9 and 3 during the day, avoiding the peak traffic. The food delivery truck will be directed, and we have influence over them, so we can direct them to turn east on Nob Hill and then go to Pacific Coast Highway, where they'll go north or south rather than turning in some other direction and kind of meandering through the neighborhood. So those are all related to the deliveries coming on the property. In addition to mitigating through management of the traffic on the site, we have a 15-foot setback between the property line on the west and the parking lot. And then at the property line, we'll have an 8-foot wall, and that would continue from Avenue A all the way to Nob Hill. And then on the northerly portion of that, the 1929 kindergarten building will also serve as a buffer between the homes that are right immediately west of us and the property itself. In response to some of the closest neighbors, we added some electric car charging stations, as Anita pointed out. And another topic that came up early in the meetings was the concern for the noises that would come from vehicles responding to 911 calls. We commissioned a study that included 52 assisted living communities within the state of California using the state fire department's records. The study concluded that based on the average of those 52 communities, Kensington should expect approximately 33 calls per year. That is an absolute number. It's as I said, statistically based on the information gathered from those 52 communities that were of similar size, operation, and community profile. In addition to the comments that Anita made regarding the environmental impact report, the traffic analysis estimated that Kensington would generate 346 daily vehicle trips. They credited 18 of those to the morning peak hour and 29 evening peak hour trips. The study concluded that neither the existing condition plus the project nor the existing plus cumulative plus project would significantly impact the study area. Traffic is always one of the key components as people and the neighbors consider any new development. So, people ask us, so what does Kensington offer Redondo Beach? Kensington will employ approximately 130 people, full-time, part-time, and 20% of those will make over $30 an hour. The operation of the community requires the support of many local businesses with whom Kensington will contract, and will be spending about $450,000 a year with that set of vendors. There are contractors, material suppliers, advertising, hospitality, and personal supplies, activity specialists, and healthcare professionals, in addition to participating with business networks and service organizations. Once the project is completed, we estimate that the city's share of our property tax will be $35,000 to $40,000 a year. Currently, the city receives no tax from the school site. For me, for us, the most important part of this, though, is the longtime residents of Redondo Beach and the neighboring beach cities can stay in the community when they need assisted living. 60 to 70% of them of the Kensington residents will come from those local neighborhoods that are within 10 minutes or about 5 miles of the location of the site. So when Redondo Beach families have a need for assisted living, they'll have a local community that offers an environment of comfortable elegance that's managed by loving professionals who offer the level of care that they need. I'm going to ask David Whitkin of the school board to come up and provide some information.
Hello, Dave.
Good evening, council members, Mayor Aspel, and staff. My name is David Whitkin. I'm a member of the Redondo Beach School Board, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak about the benefits of this project to the school district. First, just to place a little historical context around 320 Nob Hill. As Anita mentioned, we have owned this property since 1907, and it was the site was the location for the South School, later to be known as the Patterson School, which closed in 1981 due to declining enrollment. In its last year, it had 156 students. Upon the closure of Patterson, we were required, under the California Education Code, to appoint a committee on site utilization, otherwise known as a 711 committee, to advise the school board on the disposition of surplus property. We convened this board. It was chaired by Pat Ost, and in 1983, it declared the site a surplus property. And it recommended that we do one of the following: retain ownership of the site for 5 to 7 years, lease the site to other schools, government agencies, or commercial entities, and then, if leasing were not possible, then offer the site for sale. That decision was reaffirmed by yet another 711 committee in 2007. So twice, in 1983 and 2007, we received the determination that this was surplus property. Since the closure of Patterson School, we have leased the property at various times to Cardin Dominion School, CSU Dominguez Hills, and the City of Redondo. And currently, we lease the property to the LA County Office of Education for $150,000 a year. In 2009, we received an appraised lease value of $1.2 million a year. And given the financial crisis at the time, we began the process of soliciting bids for a long-term lease agreement. We solicited bids 4 separate times. First, in August 2009, we received a bid from an affordable housing company for $300,000. That's versus our value of $1.2 million. So we lowered our appraised value by 40% to $700,000, with the rationale being that because of Measure DD, a developer would bid far less than we had thought because of the uncertainty of attaining rezoning approvals. 2 separate times in 2010, we received bids, first from Whole Foods for $400,000, and then from a private school for $528,000. But the private school was found to not be a responsible bidder due to insufficient financial strength to afford the lease. Finally, in 2012, we received 2 bids, one from Fountain Square Properties for this assisted living facility, and the other from Via Almar Properties for a boutique hotel. And Fountain Square was the prevailing bidder in the auction. And so what we have now is a long-term 99-year lease for $614,000 a year with escalators for inflation. So I'd like to speak for a moment about the benefit of the project for the school district. In short, this will pay for 7 to 10 additional teachers and staff. It's important to keep in mind that in order to pay for our ongoing costs like teachers and books, we need ongoing annual revenue. If we were to sell the property, California law requires us to keep the money in reserve for maintenance and capital expenditures. Our most pressing need, because our bond measures have taken care of school facilities and CapEx, is for this ongoing revenue. If we sold the property, we could not use the money to hire 1 additional teacher, so a lease was the only viable option. Now, we're not going to decide what to do with the funds until we receive them, But as a rule of thumb, 80% of our expenses go towards salary and benefits. So it's highly likely we'll see the extra revenue go towards hiring teachers. But it's not only the dollar amount that's important to us, it's the stability of it. To give you real numbers, in our last fiscal year, our revenues were $82 million, and 90% of that came from state funding, which, as you all know, is notoriously volatile because it depends on the fiscal health of the state government. Moreover, we are facing the upcoming expiration of Proposition 30, the temporary tax increase that helped fund public education. This was passed in 2012, but starts sunsetting at the end of this year. And we estimate that the expiration of Prop 30 will cost us over $3 million. To fill this gap, we can't raise prices. One of our only predictable revenue streams is lease revenue. Last year, out of our $82 million in revenues, we had only $2.7 million of lease revenue. So the approval of this project would go far towards not only strengthening our financial picture, but making it less volatile. Finally, I might add that this is not our first time leasing out surplus property as senior housing. While this is unique because it's assisted living, we do have 2 surplus school sites, Heritage Point in North Redondo and Seasons on PCH and Emerald, under lease with what we think are positive effects for both the school district and the community. So if we receive your approval, we anticipate very active outreach to voters in anticipation of a public vote. We're optimistic of a favorable outcome. In fact, in November 2012, Fountain Square hired a firm to poll 602 Redondo residents. And let me just give you some numbers. Over 50% of those polled stated that they would definitely or probably vote yes to approve rezoning. And 77% said the following statement was either very or somewhat convincing. This project is a good way for the school district to use existing surplus property to pay for educational programs without raising taxes. So we think we're off to a very good start in gaining the support of the community for this project, and we'd very much appreciate the council's approval tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anybody from the anybody else, school district or an applicant? I don't see any lights on here. You know, we've been doing this a long time. There was a, obviously since any of us were around 1907, you bought the land. A few of your new customers might have been born then. But it's, you know, it was going to be a Whole Foods. And I know from when I was a District 1 council member there, if you were on Nob Hill and Avenue A, you were definitely against it. If you were on Avenue B and maybe a block the other direction, you were maybe against it. You got to Avenue C and D, they're going, yeah, we want it. But nobody wanted it right there in their backyard, and I don't blame them. But the farther away you got from that ground zero, is the more likely they were to vote on the Whole Foods. But the school district, I guess thankfully you didn't have a contentious election. You may have won that election for the Whole Foods. I think you would have. The neighbors in the immediate area would have been very upset. But anyway, now we've come to Fountain Square, and I appreciate Billy meeting with everybody and all your community outreach. And, you know, while this may not be a perfect solution for the city, I know it doesn't bring in a lot of tax dollars or anything. It certainly doesn't cause traffic. No one there drives, and I don't think they get that many visitors. You know, you go to the Beach Cities Health District where that is, and it's never a traffic jam leaving there. And this also gives the school district $364,000 a year more that they desperately need. And, you know, the school district, it's a shame we have to have a special election for this because to me, it's a no-brainer. I know it's going to be expensive to have an election, but that's the way, the law of unintended consequences. But, you know, this is something that our school district is priceless. It's obviously, as mayor, I'm very proud to be mayor of in Redondo Beach, where our school district is such a top-notch place. My kids went there. Our marching band got an award today. I mean, it's just a wonderful place. We want to continue that tradition, and I hope that you know my take on it. And if anybody's here to We can have the open mic night. You can come down. But I'm definitely in favor of this project, and be that as it may, we'll hear from everybody. Bill, go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Mayor Aspel, and thanks for the staff report and everybody's hard work. I know this has been going on for years. I attended the 7-Eleven meeting. I think it was in 2004, maybe 2005. So yeah, this is in 2006 or 7. Yeah. So yeah, it's been an ongoing effort, and I've watched. I've watched the previous bidders. I think it was Coast Christian. You guys gave them a shot and lost a year, and we used to be there, and we ultimately had to leave because it was on a month-to-month, and we were not comfortable with a month-to-month lease, and that's ultimately why we left. So it's a long story. I won't rehash it, but I did have a question, Anita, back on the impact. Your impact slide. It was a little confusing to me, anyway.
Would you like to see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I can ask you specifically about it. Yeah, you say there are 3 potentially significant unless mitigation incorporated. So I see the cultural resources is a potential significant impact, and that's mitigated by preserving the kindergarten building. And then it says greenhouse gases exceed Title 24 standards by 5%. And so I'm looking for like another 2 potentially significant impacts, but
Okay.
it seems like it's laid out differently, the next 2. You don't say, okay, and this is how we're mitigating it.
Actually, those are the mitigation measures. Okay, so the first one is there's a lot of different sections of CEQA. Under cultural resources, it looks at what would happen if we lost the 1929 kindergarten building. Well, that would be a loss of a historic resource. The mitigation measures preserve it.
Right.
Okay, greenhouse gas. The project, the way it's presented right now, would exceed the acceptable threshold levels for greenhouse gas. How do you mitigate it? Number 1, you ensure that this project, when it's constructed, uses standards. Okay, so these are like green building standards. They are the standards in 2013 Title 24, and they have to exceed those standards by 5%. So when they're constructing the building, it's got to do with the kind of paints they use and all things like that, so that while they're constructing it, they have to use products and methods that will reduce greenhouse gas. The third one also addresses greenhouse gas.
So is that the third impact? It seems like it's one and the same.
You could call them 2 impacts with 3
Okay.
mitigation measures.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, well then I see what
It
you're
says
saying.
3 potentially unless mitigated, but yeah, you're right.
I didn't
It's
see
2.
it mentioned. Did LEED certification enter in this? Are they LEED certified at
No.
all? Why would we not require some sort of LEED or some other sort of certification related to environmental design?
Well, LEED paperwork certification is a process that can be voluntarily chosen by an applicant. However, meeting Title 24 and exceeding this will put this into an applicant. It may already be LEED Silver at this level of efficiency. So it's only a matter of whether or not you choose to certify LEED. Often we build buildings to a LEED standard, but don't pay the hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the LEED plaque put on your building. So it will be tested and certified and will be more efficient than Title 24, which puts it into a high LEED category right there.
Like silver?
It possibly could be silver.
Okay. We have a lot of complaints around certain commercial entities, restaurants, where they do deliveries. And he talked about a delivery window of 9 to 3, I believe. Is that written in? Is this a conditional use permit? Is that in the conditional use
It's a
permit?
recommended condition of the CUP for the project.
So one of the resolutions says that it reaffirms the land use entitlements of the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission granted a CUP for which there are many conditions. They're all contained in the resolutions that you will approve.
Right.
And yes, it is a condition.
So if they start making deliveries at 5 o'clock in the morning,
It's a violation of their CUP.
right, okay. And, yeah, calls to emergency, I don't see our Fire Chief Metzger here. He was here. They're, I don't know, is he coming in the other room? Anyway, they say that they're expecting 33 more calls a year, and it's based on a study of 52 other assisted communities. I know our previous city administration had a lot of problems with the additional emergency calls coming. I mean, is that a reasonable number? That's what I wanted to ask the Chief Metzger. Does he feel like that's a reasonable number for 96 units for an assisted
There's a couple of factors. I mean, this has gotten a great deal of discussion. One of the factors is, in some ways, some elderly, let's say take an 83-year-old person living at home with their children. When something happens to them and nobody there has any medical training, they call the ambulance. Now, you take that same person and put them in the assisted living. They're being assisted so they don't have accidents, and there's nursing staff. So if something happens to them, they don't immediately call an ambulance because they're in actually a much more protective environment. So in some ways, that generates less. The other is the transplanting of calls. So the same person who has the same issues, I suddenly have a heart attack, okay, now since we know the clients or residents are coming from the immediate area. I used to live on Avenue C, now I'm living on Avenue A. It's the same call, it's just shifted from Avenue C to Avenue A. So looking at those kind of things, we think it's a reasonable number.
Chief Metzger, can I ask you a question real quick about the emergency calls that could be expected? It's 96 units. They're expecting an additional 33 calls a year. Does that seem reasonable to expect for this kind of facility?
Well, I think it's reasonable to expect at least 33 calls. My experience coming from a different part of the country would suggest that we would expect a higher call volume than that. But as I've had some conversation with the folks in the past, probably not a volume that we couldn't still manage. But I don't know what that number is.
Okay.
And Councilman Brand, just for the record, in the EIR, there was a disagreement between the applicant and the city with respect to the number of calls. Mm-hmm. And so the EIR used the 85 calls, additional calls, in assessing the environmental review. So
declared it not significant.
Correct, even with 85 calls.
And I don't know if we touched on this point, but another very important factor that we considered was the market study and analysis for the facility, in that a full 60 to 70% of the calls that may go to this facility would have gone to our community already, because their market area does cover our community and our mutual aid area. So these calls won't necessarily be new. A lot of them will be actually just new to this location.
Right, and so, yeah, I mean, any concern would be, you know, that they're being concentrated in this area, and there'll be an impact to the community there. Last question I wanted was about Article 27, the voter approval requirement, and on page 9 of your staff report, in the last sentence it says the proposed change in allowable language would change a public use to private use. The project also includes a minor amendment to Article 27 of the city charter. Are you amending the city charter?
One of our slides that we presented showed the process for the project, and we expect, and the applicant has made a request of the city, and we've confirmed with the applicant it is their request that the project approval and amendments go to the voters prior to going to the Coastal Commission. Now, that is the current request of the applicant. There is a high likelihood that the Coastal Commission would have some suggested modifications to the project. Rarely does a case go through without them wanting to add a condition on tree trimming or something. In fact, we just met with the Coastal Commission today. And so we expect that if in fact the project were approved by the voters and then were to go to the Coastal Commission, we run a risk of having to bring it back to an additional vote. The amendment to the charter would be exclusive to this project and say that that further suggested modifications of the Coastal Commission would not require a subsequent vote.
I mean, can you do that? I mean, Cheryl, just for the project? You're not amending Chapter 27,
You would be
walking a
amending.
gray line of having to do an initiative.
So you would be amending the charter, and that is contained in one of your blue folder. There's the sample ballot materials. And if you look on page, page 13, to that blue folder item, it has the language, the proposed amendment to Article 27. And it states, if modifications to the local coastal program are suggested or required as a result of the California Coastal Commission's review of the LCP amendments for the Kensington Assisted Living Facility project, any such modifications adopted by the City Council shall not be subject to this article and shall not require further voter approval. Should such modifications to the LCP also require that the City Council adopt any other legislative amendments to ensure consistency, the City Council's adoption of those legislative amendments shall not be subject to this article and shall not require further voter approval. So that covers the situation that Aaron was talking about. If it goes to the Coastal Commission and they make some minor amendments, then it doesn't have to go back for another voter approval. As soon as the Coastal Commission completes their process and certifies the amendments, then the amendments to our local coastal program and our zoning ordinance would be effective. Would just like to note that there was similar language in measures A and B.
Okay.
So, at what point, when you're amending the charter, do you, right, this was in Measure A and B. And at some point, I mean, there's a difference between this and an initiative, right? This is not an initiative, right?
No, this is just the amendment to the charter specific to this project.
You can bury that in this specific project.
Well, the language that I just read, it does.
So is this going to be entered into the charter for now and forever? It'll be sitting there when somebody goes to read the charter in 2050, they'll be going, oh, what was that project?
Correct. If it's voted upon and approved by the people, yes.
All right, well, that's something to think about.
And certainly that's, it's a council decision. Ms. Park is correct. Both A had slightly different language that I had some concerns about. B had similar language. It's designed to not have the voters have to vote twice on effectively the same thing if the Coastal Commission makes a condition something that would otherwise trigger Article 27. That's your staff recommendation to do that, but it's up to the council to decide whether you want to do that and put it before the voters. If you don't, then you could have a vote. The voters could think they voted for it. The Coastal Commission could demand that you make a change that triggers Article 27, and now you have another vote. And that's the competing public interest that the five of you have to decide.
Or you could wait for the Coastal Commission to weigh in and implement any changes that they suggest that are significant and then put it up for a vote. Or if they don't, then you just put it up for a vote after the Coastal Commission.
And that is true. What that then obviously risks is the potential to have
delay.
Another vote.
No, to avoid having to have another vote, you can submit this, if we approve it, to the Coastal Commission. They can suggest amendments or not suggest amendments.
Oh, correct. If you're right, and that goes to the applicant clearly wants to go first, and there are
Right.
a
So it's a
variety
matter
of
of
reasons.
time.
And again, it's a policy call for you. We want to make certain that's within your discretion, but it's, if there was anything that the proponents of Measure A and B agreed on, which wasn't much, it was to try and avoid a subsequent vote on essentially the same issue because of a change from the Coastal Commission that would trigger Article 27. But that is your call to make.
That was a little bit different, but I hear you.
Well, it's essentially the same approach. Whether the facts are the same, that's for the five of you to decide.
Okay, well, that's all I had for now. I'll think about that one.
Christian?
Okay. So what is the time frame on this then? When it's passed this evening, let's go with Bill's assumption that it goes to the Coastal Commission first and then to a vote and the other way.
The council is being asked to consider a second step on February 16th, I believe, which would be actual ballot materials and so forth, and final action. At which point, on or before March 8th would be the deadline for a June